strained and worn out are the ropes of yesteryear, that a force larger than they have ever tested may finally snap them apart. This is the Civilization Battle Royale X, Season 4, Episode 25. Great people, great titles, great heartache. An exciting new episode of the 4th season of the Civ Battle Royale is brought to you by a narrator who goes by the name of Bulletproof Cookie, who may or may not actually be bulletproof or a baked snack. This week will be witness to the end of the 19th century, as the weapons used to gain literal ground and resources will soon become even deadlier than before. We have over 100 images to read through, so let us proceed. If you need a refresher on the current state of the cylinder, look no further than the weekly maps provided by cartographer SonicFan0511. Those blobs of color will only grow bigger or smaller or scrubbed off the face of the earth over time. The differences in the number of technologies is becoming noticeably clear as daylight the more advanced the game becomes. As we can see in the CBRX Season 4 info sheet, the Wagi are currently technologically superior to all other players. They recently discovered archaeology and are now researching biology. It takes a lot of time and effort to run these massive AI games, as well as to capture screenshots, write narrations, and host the albums. So shout out to all those who help to financially support the cause. Even a small contribution helps out. The power rankers continue to rank Goguryeo first, with the biggest drop in the rankings going to Mongolia, who fell 11 spots. We shall find out how much farther the Mongols will fall soon enough. And we immediately commence this week's episode in the South American continent, as Moreno Warlord is excited to take advantage of the ongoing war between Tiwanaku and New Holland by launching an offensive in the north of Tiwanaku territory, with soldiers traversing through the front-line mines to begin an attack on the city of Ojo, with Lukurmata another likely target for Ecuadorian expansion. With his troops largely eastward, Law Speaker Hustis will have to find a suitable solution to fighting these two fronts. An important episode for Sorgag Tani, as we could see the collapse of the Mongolian Empire, and given the precarious positions that Old Sarai and Xiaotun are facing, the capital of Karakorum is at risk of being bombarded, if not outright conquered. A Selkup horse brigade also threatens Mongolia up northwest. And of course, things could get even worse, should the Dzungars or Goguryeo get involved. It's also an important episode for Daji, as she hopes after the humbling she received not too long ago, that expanding into Mongolia could start a new age of prosperity for her dynasty. You could even call it a renaissance? Get it? Because there's an era in Civ 5 called the Renaissance. After carefully considering his options in regard to the invasion of the Ecuadorian army, Hustis comes to terms with the loss of Pajchiri and makes peace with Johann Moritz. This diplomatic move will free up those units in the east to regroup in the current war in the northwest. Oh, and the Babylonian sub is in a golden age, after enjoying countless slaughters and snuffing of cultures right and center. As the coasts of Tamontaka continue to be disturbed by the embarked Singaporean fleet led by Keu Malahayati, the arts are of great interest in the heart of Lee Kuan Yew's archipelago, with Abraham Niklas Edelkranz's poetry being of particular significance within Singapore's eponymous capital. We shift our attention to East Asia, where Koshinga calls an end to the war against Kenyo and, I assume, takes Oyama Gobo in the treaty. Ikko Ikki definitely will struggle to keep the somewhat isolated Nagashima in a future war with either Zhang or Goguryeo. For those with the sub worried about the state of Changhua, do not worry. It remains a proud Zhang Island resort. Hurrah! As the Visigoths peace out with two civs in irrelevant wars, Mongolia's war with the Selkups continues to feel as relevant as they could. Having already lost Hovd and Almarich, Xia begins to lose health, and the Arctic settlement of Sanchu is also being advanced on. While this is all going on, a Mongolian swordsman decides to go skinny dipping in the lake. a Dzungar chariot archer eavesdrops on the unit unnoticed. Further down south, not too down south, we are still focused on Mongolia, Zhao Tun is reunited with the Shang dynasty, and a pikeman claims the city of Old Sarai. These cities are prone to being flipped back, but Shang has enough muscle to force through and retain the two cities. We set eyes on North America for the first time this episode, where Florida is under attack from vessels of all sizes. The capital Fernandina is garrisoned by several composite bowmen that are under the tough task of striking down the wave of ships blockading its coast. Gregor MacGregor will also be hoping that a strategically placed citadel on the coast will help wither the armada of ships that Agüebana has sent in his bid to conquer the southeastern territory of America. Babylonian recruit Ishtar reports back from his intel mission from Deta to bring news that Chancellor Akaccio has been busy with his closest advisors planning a possible war against Moreno warlord. Why Akaccio is making plans of military expansion in South America when much of North America remains to be conquered is a mystery. After giving his report, Ishtar was sent to his next mission in Mount Hagen so he can update us on diplomatic matters within the Wagi capital. The Italian composer Jacopo Peri arrives in Latacunga, where his opera performance on Mongolia is viewed by Moreno, who was so moved by the words used that it convinced him to support the Mongolian coalition. Meanwhile, Ecuadorian knights fail to make any sufficient progress in Tiwanakan provinces. Dictator Sorgag Tani is unamused by this lack of support, and Mongolia flips both Old Sarai and Zhao Tun baby blue. Mongolian generals, for whatever reason, do not move south with reinforcements, and both cities are poised to flip back. The Khoshuts and Vijayanagara are engaged in battle between Mohenjo-daro and Chandragiri, where one of two adjacent citadels has been pillaged by an invading pikeman. A Khoshut trebuchet is also bombarding Mergar. Krishna-devaraya will be counting on his unique crossbowman replacement, the Kaijita, to make the difference in this conflict. On to Africa to check up on Sierra Leone's invasion of the Alawites, and Thomas Peters is making much more of an effort than last episode to capture Marrakesh. Trebuchets are also making their way to commence laying siege on Ismail ibn Sharif's other remaining city, Meknes. There's also a bit of a blockade happening as Pharaoh galleons surround the Visigoth island of Rakopolis, with Trondor sending reinforcements to help wrest control of the battle. Yagan is given the bad news that Tamontaka has fallen to Singapore, though there are enough frigates and embarked units nearby to perhaps flip it back, should Yagan act hastily. Singapore also appears to be a turn or two away from regaining control over Sentosa, too. Singapore isn't the only civilization Nungar is currently locking horns with, as they and Palawa continue to battle for dominance over Australia. Cuirassiers march towards Nipaluna, the only remaining inland settlement. The Tehuelche peace out with Wagi to spare them from the horde of enemy frigates that would have killed any chance of taking back Kona Nieu from Palawa. The Mexican Puebloan War sees a number of Puebloan caravels blockading Valladolid. That Mexican admiral better sail along the coastline of Guadalajara to boost the Mexican Navy's morale. The same goes to that Puebloan admiral stationed next to Santa Fe. Up north, units are attempting to maneuver themselves into a formation efficient enough to recapture the former Puebloan city of Walatoa. Hey guys, want to see some snow elephants? Check left of the Zhengzhou city center. We cannot see the entirety of the city's health as part of it is off screen, but it seems as if Sanchu's going through the bone zone right now. Carlos Ulmanis sees no reason to carry on his current war with Ludwig II and chooses now to take a break from expanding into Bavaria by making peace. Bonnet has fully recovered from the English offensive, though a lone garrisoned trebuchet is the only thing offering any protection as of now. The Fernandina composite bowmen continue to fend off the terrors from the sea, though one of them has perhaps become a little too overzealous and is now within striking distance from an occupied and garrisoned Fort San Carlos being guarded by a pikeman. That probably would also be a good place to plant a citadel to help defend St. Augustine from land bombardments. Sentosa returns to Singapore's influence as there continues to be a battle for Tamontaka. Lee Kuan Yew is already thinking of further military expansion and has sent naval escorts on course to Jaramungup. The Tehuelche are unable to take back Kona Niu as Tarunorerer gets to keep the city through peace. Sanchu has fallen, and even if that Mongolian knight flips it back, the Selkups would easily reconquer it. That swordsman from earlier has been ordered to get out of the lake and fight for his country, even if they face certain death should they dare trade blows with one of those line infantry. Gregor opts not to plant his general onto that forest tile next to the coast, presumably valuing that lumber mill's preservation more than his 2 remaining cities. Jean-Baptiste Colbert, a French merchant renowned for his political actions in the development and modernizing of the French state in the 17th century, stands on the edge of the cliffs of Kikiktaluk and gazes out to the freezing seas in the direction of the blockade of Viskovo. Thule musketmen embarked with naval escorts are holding out against the firing of Nivk cannons as they await for the coastal city's defenses to be whittled down. The conflict between the Kossuths and Vijayanagara comes to a halt, with Praetor Krishnadevaraya evaluating the current war reports and concluding that peace talks must begin before Mehrgarh comes close to falling. Gushi Khan agrees to sue for peace so his men can regroup for the next military operation. Henry's finest knights and advisors are called upon his throne room, and he wishes to deliver an order for his next offensive. "My men," Henry V bellowed in the throne room, "it's time to write a new chapter in the ever-bitter saga between our glorious nation and the barbaric Burgundians. Let us go forth and take to them once more." His advisors were deeply concerned. "But what about the war against the Visigoths, my lord?" one of them asked. "The war continues. We still have much to gain from our fight against our Iberian neighbors." Another advisor spoke up. But my king, there are not enough soldiers currently fortified near York and Autun, and the Burgundian army outnumbers those garrisons." The English king did not take kindly to his disagreeing advisor and rose up from his throne. Henry walked up to the advisor, unsheathed his sword, and pointed it straight at the man's jugular. "Have you forgotten who I am? I am Henry the fucking Fifth. I take on any battle, no matter the numbers game, and you shall all be wise to never oppose my will. Now spread the word and never speak to me again." The agitated monarch gestured to his own throat with the index finger of his spare hand. "Or else." Without another second's pause, the knights in attendance immediately departed to spread the news. And so it came to pass that England was at war with Burgundy again. Speaking of the Visigoth War, an English fleet of carracks led by an admiral sailed through the shores of Emerita and Barcino with an eye on the proceedings in Rakopolis, where the Faroese galleons continued to strain the defense of the small island. The ongoing war between Kazan and Ume Sami may not see any land disputes, but one of 2 Ume Sami prophets was captured by the Kazan military for their attempt to further poison the populace's minds with the teachings of Noai Devota. This is a Vajranaya empire. Pay no heed to the majority religion of the capital or Tates. The Shang army flips back Jiao Tun, and Bori Shad is enlisted to take back Old Sarai. Shad, for the unenlightened, led the Turks against the Sasanian Empire in the 7th century. Ultimately, there is zero attempt by Singapore to gain a foothold on the mass of land that is Australia. Instead, the 2 sides call it a war. This greatly displeases the Babylonian sub. The Dzungars have amassed an ever-growing platoon of Ulan Zalatas for their next military campaigns. This lancer replacement has extra movement when beginning its turn on a hill or adjacent to a mountain, and can upgrade into the Dzungar's unique cavalry unit, the Zanbur Cavalry. More white peace deals that deflate my lust for virtual bloodshed. This time it's Pueblo and Mexico. Boo! Apparently, Sanchu got flipped off-screen by Mongolia, but not to worry, it's back in Selkup hands now. The Mongolian skinny-dipping swordsman hides in terror within a building in Turfan. With the Taino Armada continuing its struggles to capture Fernandina, Agüebana II has enlisted the help of Fleet Admiral Ernest J. King, who served under the United States Navy during World War II. I guess if you need to enlist someone to conquer the U.S., best to choose an historical figure from the U.S.? Oh, and this guy is from Ohio, by the way. I only mention that because Ernie probably heard what Doc Ito had said about his state during the Seminole Death Slide last season from Beyond the Grave, and has taken exception to the audio narrator's ad-libbed comments. Hey, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Ohio about to get the W over Florida, perhaps. Ludwig looks to establish new generals for future conflicts, and he enlists the help of Francisco Pancho Villa, an important figure in the Mexican Revolution. Rekopolis falls, but Trondor Igotu calls for it to be razed. With there being too many Visigoth ships present to keep it, and with England looking for a snipe, Trondor would prefer to burn the island down, if possible. The modern era has arrived, as Goguryeo reached the era upon probably discovering radio. The modern era is home to the first available aircraft in the game, submarines, and very powerful infantry that can stomp on anything pre-industrial. You do not want to mess with President Goguryeo. As the war between Tiwanaku and Ecuador chuggers on, a great artist becomes the talk of the town in Pariti. How American actor and director Kevin Costner is going to make movies like Dances with Wolves when it is 1882 and the moving camera is still a new thing, this narrator does not know. Maybe he will film this cylinder's The Arrival of a Train at La Ciotat Station. Nungar and Palawa are still going at it, but there's little to update you on. The Palawa ship did try to attack Pinjara, though. So let us pan up slightly to check on Mount Hagen, as Ishtar has uncovered who Great King Bolim is secretly plotting against. For whatever reason, he is still plotting against Kudarat, despite the Maguindanao having no more cities or military around. Perhaps Bolim is aware of a resistance movement within his empire. Ishtar also reveals that a Wagi army with naval escorts had set sail for a sneak attack, but we've already seen in earlier slides who they were going for, so this isn't big news. Perhaps they are still interested in Kona Niu despite its Palawa occupation. Well, that last espionage mission wasn't quite the juicy intel we were looking for, so Ishtar has departed for Siming, the Zhang capital. Hopefully, we get something more to sink our teeth into. The recent government overview reports reached the Babylonian submarine, starting with the Roman state leader's title being changed to Trajan, Grand Polemarch of Rome, Strategos of the Mamluks. The Empire of Pontus formally recognizes their great king's title as Mithridates the Conqueror, Captain of the People, Commander-in-Chief, Great King of Pontus. The Siamese government has moved to being a progressive empire. Their controlling party is known as the Left Fellowship. Many of the governments at this stage of time prefer to be ruled by warlords, seeing themselves more as a horde. Ecuador, in particular, see themselves as a nomadic horde. Justus is officially known within the Tiwanaku Republic as Justus, Captain of the People, by the grace of God, Law Speaker of Tiwanaku. And perhaps most interestingly, the Nivkh Republic recognizes their leader as Ume the Humane, Emperor of the Romans, Praetor of the Nivkh. I am certain the Roman state are displeased to hear another leader proclaim themselves ruler of the Romans. Heading back to the action, the Ecuadorian-Tiwanaku conflict remains a stalemate amid both civilizations, but a third player has entered this war. Upon being alerted that the port of Ichabamba is without any naval defense, Great King Puni declared war against Justus and orders the general embarked next to Machaca to seize the coastal settlement. Palawa is also the victim of a declaration of war from both Bora Bora and New Holland. And you can now see why Puni is going after Taranarera. Pachacamac is swarmed by Bora Bora boats, and it shall soon join the Bora Bora Corps. As the Sierra Leone army struggles to find a solution to overcome Marrakesh's rocky climate, Idris Alauma I will be counting on great engineer Joseph Strauss to bolster the production of Kanem Bornu's manufactured goods. Strauss is best known for designing the Golden Gate Bridge. The pharaoh leader has a change of heart and opts to halt the burning down of Rhacopolis. I guess Trondor is feeling a little less cranky than before. As a possible sign of friendship between Labatsibeni Mdaluli and Abu Bakr ibn Umar, the Eswatini and Mogadishu join the slowly enlarging coalition against Tiwanaku and Palawa. The indecisive action Trondor has taken on Rhacopolis has angered a growing number of civilians to the point where some have taken muskets and are now rebelling in the tundra hills of Torshavn. This narrator would also love to know why Sumba's Colosseum is built underwater. Are the gladiator fights in there performed in wooden ships? A new Mexican great general has risen up the ranks in the name of Bernardo O'Higgins, who played a role in the peace treaty between Mexico and Mongolia. What was involved in the peace treaty remains a mystery. Also, for those of you who don't know or remember, O'Higgins led Chile in the Mark II edition of the Civ Battle Royale that started almost a decade ago now, as of the typing of this slide. Indeed, Bora Bora ships do sail east to harass the Ichabamba beaches, but the action doesn't stop there. Skirmishers, line infantry, field guns, and even riflemen invade southern Tiwanaku. The former Rio Grande city of Alegrete sees the most danger of falling in this invasion. Are we witnessing the beginning of the end of Justus? Trondor does a 180 once more, and resumes razing Rhacopolis, possibly as a response to the uprising. Those black loyalists need to get on with it and take Marrakesh already, before the Kanem Bornu army get any ideas, seeing how barren Sierra Leone's core is as of this moment. The first adopters of the order ideology are Iko Iki, which I'm sure will not result in any ideological warfare between them and the autocratic Goguryeo whatsoever. No siree, Bob. The resistance is fleeting within the city walls of Fernandina, and with now 3 great generals, Gregor does not try to help the situation by planting down more citadels along the coastline. We could see a capital flip very soon. The Afsharids have had a fairly quiet episode so far, so let's give a brief spotlight to one of their unique units, the Savaran e Saltanti. This cuirassar replacement has a lower penalty when fighting cities and is stronger in combat when flanking. The Afsharids also have a line infantry replacement. Maybe someday that musketman will grow up to be a Jazayerchi. In news that everyone but only the most loyal of Palawan citizens could see coming, the city of Pachacamac is assimilated into the Bora Bora Corps. Congratulations to Prince Elizabeth Bathory, who not only apparently refers to themselves as a prince and not a princess, I'll leave this to your own interpretation, my fellow reader, but for leading the Royal Hungarian Principality to the Renaissance era. Good job. Other civilizations are already 3 eras ahead, by the way. The Selkups are not having an easy time conquering Xia. Relying on lancers and skewbald riders doesn't seem to be the most efficient method of taking down a garrisoned city. They should take some inspiration from the Zungars, who have 2 cannon placed within bombardment distance of Turfan. Just been handed a note. Past Bulletproof Cookie has not yet realized that the Dzungars have just declared war against the Selkups. Future Bulletproof Cookie blames the change in icon colors on letting this slip. Nungar forces have amassed next to Nipaluna, though with a city defense of 58, I suspect Yagan is going to need a strong mid-game siege unit to blow it to bits. That trebuchet in the lake is not it. The Visigoths are able to recapture Rhakopolis, though still face opposition from both the Pharaohs and England. Marrakesh is still standing. Can we chalk this one up as a failure by Thomas Peters? Even if he still captures the city, he's wasted too much resources due to his tactical incompetence on this one. He can't blame it all on the mountains. Waterloo is a good base for an assault from the north. The sounds of bossa nova ring from the streets of Vallatepe, thanks to the emergence of great musician Antonio Carlos Bohim. He was a 20th century Brazilian composer who merged samba and cool jazz together to create the bossa nova style to worldwide acclaim. Lads, it's coming home. England, having let the Faroe Islands do all of the work, swoop in and occupy Rhakopolis. Can they hold it with those naval backups on their way? Old Sarai flips again, and the Shang army marches towards Karakorum. Can Mongolia at least hold on to their capital? Can it get any worse for them? The Tiwanaku land forces have been pushed back into their own territory by the Ecuadorian musketmen and knights. More Bora Bora vessels arrive at Ichibamba to see to its toppling. We have an update from our spy Ishtar in Siming, who has uncovered that King Koshinga is making plans against Abu Bakr ibn Umar and the Mogadishu Empire. Ishtar's next espionage mission will see him infiltrate Al-Assa for more secrets. Speaking of which, the Karmatians had just declared war on Nivkh, which probably won't be a relevant war, but we'll see. Palawa loses their South American holding as a Bora Bora galleon establishes authority over the civilians of Kona Niu, or at least all the ones that haven't been killed as consequence from all the recent conquerings. A great general is stationed in Bugis, awaiting a potential order by Kuan Yu to plant a citadel to regain some of the territory that Zheng had just stolen. I absolutely love that planted citadel on that one tile island close to Chinatown. I just wanted to point it out. Yikes. In true English fashion, Henry V is bottling the expansion gains he made in France by having too few units to protect Autun. Now the Rumped Burgundy have a solid chance of retaking what was once their city. Even a few Visigoth units are eyeing the undefended property to possibly snipe from behind. Those within the Babylonian sub grow unstable on the Selkups' prolonged siege of Xia, and are praying whatever jazzy tunes Duke Ellington can come up with motivate Vonya's men to get them over the hump. Past Bulletproof Cookie still doesn't know about the Selkup-Dzungar War. The Nungar army hasn't made any attempt to actively launch an offensive on the city of Nipaluna. Yagan may have alternatively chosen to ambush Patawe first. At least there are some ranged units to bombard, but again, the high city defense will make that a difficult siege. As this is going on, and on, and on, the arts flourish in Putalina. The French painter Edouard Manet is known for his modern life paintings. Many of us have been waiting for this moment almost all game, once it was clear Florida wouldn't even be a contender to conquer their own continent. But here it is, the fall of Fernandina, the original capital of Florida. The city will probably flip a few times before Gregor loses it for good. I said this once last season when the Seminole died, and I'll mention it once more because it has become applicable once more, if not ringing even more true than last time. What did you expect from a civ whose starting location was Florida? The Tiwanaku military has been stretched thin by 3 battlefronts, and Husta's predicament is worsening by the turn, with Lukurmata, Ichibama, and Allegretti all being damaged by his foes. Only shrewd diplomacy may rescue the Tiwanaku people from being conquered. Upon executing the troublesome rebels, Chondor is approached by a high-ranking scientist who suggests they try out this new ideology that was recently adopted in East Asia, Order. Upon being briefed further information of this new ideology and its use policies, Chondor was impressed enough to install it across his many islands. As expected, Florida had enough strength within the vicinity of their fallen capital to reclaim it, but it can still easily flip back. Suddenly, the Selkups are at war with the Dzungars. I'm not sure when that declaration happened because I didn't notice a DOW icon involving both, but here we go. The city of Almiak is surrounded by the Dzungar army, with further troops advancing towards Kargasok, Astana, and Almaty. With most of Vonya's soldiers still fighting Mongolia, Selkups have a major problem. That was slide 71, past me. But seriously, why weren't the Civ icons also updated to reflect their new color schemes? Would have made things easier to spot. Leovigild has had enough of the Recopolis hijinks and sends an armada of galleasses to retake the city and fend off the invading enemy ships. Also, I am ready to chalk up the siege of Marrakesh as a massive failure on Thomas Peters' part. I expect the power rankers to punish Sierra Leone severely for his impotence. Ichabamba's defenses run ever thinner, with the Bora Bora blockading the city to stop an Ecuadorian boat from finding an opening to snipe the city. A group of Tiwanaku units to the south bring much-needed support to a bombarded Allegretti, but that may not be close to enough to stop Puni's onslaught. It is not just the mainland that is under attack, as the frosty Arctic holdout Warawilka faces Puni's wrath. Not even the nearby workforce is safe from harm. The Bora Bora also blockade Pilitika with only a couple of ships. Shajar al-Dur has little to do other than wait for someone to come and end her rule over the Mamluks. As she lives in her palace in Damietta, a Kanembu great prophet by the name of Thérèse of Lisieux visits her residence. Only those closest to Shajar have any knowledge of how their conversation went. At last, the siege of Nipaluna begins, though only a single cannon and crossbowmen are stationed to make any ranged offensive. Yagan seems content with slamming a bunch of cuirassiers to their deaths as the main method of attacking the city. A coalition slowly mounts against Umu as the Nivkh military around Viskovo fend off Tuli attackers. Could Honshoji become the target of a counterattack? We take another break to get an overview of the current governments. The Conservative Party, under the name of Romanticist Path of Faroe Islands, are the installed government of the Empire of the Faroe Islands. Peter Thomas has given himself the title of the King of Kings. Who does he think he is, Triple H? Finally, the Democratic Republic of the Yellowknives are led by the Green Party Nature and Progress Path of the Yellowknives. You told me this would bring order to my empire. An enraged Trondor violently throttled the scientist who suggested the new regime, his sudden anger due to the uprisings that were occurring now in Nordjogota. This brought nothing! Off with his head! The royal guardsmen immediately took the scientist to be executed. To complete Thomas Peters' failed campaign this episode, the city of Marrakesh does indeed fall to their neighbor, Kanem Bornu. This leaves Ismail ibn Sharif with only Meknes to his name. New Holland is the next civilization to adopt an ideology, and they have chosen autocracy. The Bora Bora Navy continues to lightly harass Palawa ships being sighted southeast of Tatoe. French privateer and slave trader Robert Surcouf offers his services to Puni's oceanic empire. Taino's ships reclaim Fernandina, and although the city can be flipped by the dwindling number of composites and pikemen, it is very unlikely that MacGregor will be able to exit this war with it secured. And that is if MacGregor even survives this war, as the focus shifts to St. Augustine. With the will of the people of Florida fading out, next episode could see the casket close shut for Florida. Great King Bolim adds to his World Wonder collection by completing the construction of the Louvre in Banz. They receive a great artist and 4 additional great works of art slots. The wonder itself will have little benefit in this battle royale relative to other wonders. We end this week's episode with Ishtar returning from his mission in Al-Asa to reveal that King Abu Tahir al-Janabi is plotting against us? Is the cylinder aware of our existence within the Arctic ice-encircled mountains? It took the Season 1 cast a lot longer to realize our presence in Antarctica. Should we be concerned about this revelation? Or of the Wagi and Mogadishu fleets in the near distance? Much like the fates of Florida, the Alawites, Mongolia, and Tiwanaku, only time will tell. Until then, this has been your narrator, Bulletproof Cookie, wishing you all a happy... Hold on, let me check this. September 25th. National Women's Health and Fitness Day. So long for now.